BlackBerry released a very intriguing device recently and brought to us something we thought had been lost to the ages. That's right, BlackBerry has revived the vertical slider. BlackBerry fans the world over celebrated. But it left some wondering if this physical keyboard really is a thing. The BlackBerry physical keyboard is legendary in the mobile field, but the smartphone industry in general has moved on from that. But here comes BlackBerry with the priv, touting a feature that has been left behind for a year now, and in a form factor that was updated about 4 years ago. Honestly, I respect BlackBerry for tapping out on BB10 and going with Android, but the physical keyboard is still very dated. But is that BlackBerry's trademark now? Can BlackBerry make a smartphone that leaves this relic behind? Been there, done that. On the one hand, BlackBerry has already tried this with the Z10. Arguably, the Z10 has one of the best virtual keyboards on the market, with the predictive text hovering just over your finger and thus hovering over where your eyes are focused. BlackBerry did a great job redefining the virtual keyboard in predictive text, in a way that made a lot of sense and was functional. But then BlackBerry moved away from the virtual keyboard in favor of the physical keyboard in both the BlackBerry Classic and the BlackBerry Passport. The BlackBerry Classic's keyboard makes sense, it's a classic after all. And the Passport makes sense because how else are you going to type on that ridiculous-looking phone? But consider the BlackBerry priv, and its Android operating system and slab look. Here again was an opportunity to abandon the physical keyboard. This makes a lot of sense, especially considering the hazards of introducing moving parts into a smartphone. It's just that much more that can break. Along with port covers and doors, a slider can be a delicate mechanism that is easy to malfunction. It would have been entirely understandable if BlackBerry had foregone the keyboard on this device. But instead, it's just a slide away. And yet, which really just proves that BlackBerry is married to its keyboard. I mean, there's no other reason to include it on the priv if not to appease its customer base. BlackBerry is already making compromises in other aspects of its phone, the operating system for example. So perhaps BlackBerry recognizes that its core user base expects and requires that physical keyboard. Which isn't really a bad thing. Let's face it folks, things have gotten quite stagnant in the smartphone space, so a physical keyboard and a vertical slider are both great ways to stand out. It's not just smartphone, it's a BlackBerry. If the physical keyboard is to be BlackBerry's signature, I'm not so sure that's a bad thing. There are worse ways to stand out as a smartphone. Plus, bringing back the vertical slider will undoubtedly pull on the heartstrings of the die-hard fans out there. This is not a bad thing, as far as BlackBerry is concerned. Could do worse. But that begs the question, if it is married to this form factor, is that such a bad thing? Even more than a logo, a physical trait like that does more for the platform than any logo could. Logos can be too small to see, or covered with a case, but a physical keyboard is double take worthy. If you have a phone that has a physical keyboard, then you have a BlackBerry, no question. A physical keyboard is distinctive. It makes a phone stand out and it screams for attention. It's just so different. It's also highly functional. When I was reviewing the BlackBerry Classic, I mentioned how the physical keyboard allowed you to pound out emails and texts like a champ. Assuming this keyboard is the same, this signature is distinctive and functional. That's a magic combination right there, folks. When you see a physical keyboard, especially in 2015, you think BlackBerry. Just like facial tissue makes you think of Kleenex. One naturally follows the other, which is great for BlackBerry and great for the fans. Now the only question is, will the jump to Android help, or will BlackBerry and its physical keyboard continue to struggle in the smartphone space? Time will tell, but in the meantime, enjoy that portrait slider and be the productive machine that you are.